you really don't want him to do that. Let me explain. A few years ago, while visiting Israel, our Hebrew guide took us to the area where the Israelites crossed the Jordan River, entering the Promised Land after wandering in the desert for 40 years. In my mind, I had always imagined a typical river. I was disappointed. He led us to an area south of Jericho, which sits very close to the Jordan River. As we pulled up, I remarked, "So where's the river?" He pointed to a small creek bed, which was really no more than an oversized ditch. We walked over to the high side of this large ditch, and he said, "Based on scripture and historical and archaeological findings, this is our best guess for the location of the crossing of the Jordan River." I was stunned. Our guide let that sink in for a minute. You know, what lay before us was not a river. The ditch was so small you could jump over it. Our guide saw the distressed looks on our faces and he explained, "It's winter. The snow on Mount Hermon isn't melting like it does during the spring and summer. At that time, the melting floods the small streams and rivers leading down to the Sea of Galilee." He explained that as the sea fills up, it flows out of the south and down to the Dead Sea. We were standing about halfway between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. As we looked up the sides of this low area, it was easy to see how high the river rises throughout the summer and the fall. Our guide continued, "The river grows so big at times that it spills out into the desert. It can be a raging torrent." It was harvest time when the Lord led the children of Israel out of the desert, across the Jordan, and into the Promised Land. It was an aha moment for me. The Lord could have led Joshua and the children of Israel to the crossing in the early spring so that they could cross with ease. Where's the fun in that? No, the Lord brought them to a very full, churning Jordan River. And he did it on purpose. And God didn't build a bridge. I mean, why go over when you can go through? And why would the Lord do this? You see, the Lord was taking them back 40 years to the day their fathers and mothers stood at the shore of the Red Sea. Many of these people may have remembered that day since they would have been very young at that time. No doubt Joshua and Caleb remembered it vividly. And now they stood before a much smaller obstacle to the Promised Land than the Red Sea. Still, it's a major league obstacle. Since they'd spent the last 40 years in the desert, I think it's safe to assume they couldn't swim. And in this particular area, it's very arid, like a desert. There certainly wasn't enough wood to build a bridge, even if they knew what a bridge was. Life is full of obstacles, small and large. Some of the size of the Jordan River, and some the size of the Red Sea. The children of Israel could have waited for the Jordan to go down. They could have crossed with ease, but look what they would have missed. Earlier in Joshua 3, it says, "Jordan overflows all its banks during the whole time of harvest." When the children of Israel crossed over Jordan, the Lord's manna stopped. He no longer needed to feed them. He'd been preparing a harvest of milk and honey for them all along.